Mike Bohn joined today by Anthony Pettis, the former UFC and WEC lightweight champion who fights Alex Morono Saturday night in Las Vegas at UFC Fight Night 183. Anthony, how are we doing today, man?
I'm good, man. Couldn't be in a better spot, honestly. My weight's perfectly. Just got into the bubble here in the host hotel and just getting ready for fight night.
That's good stuff, man. And before we get to that, I mean, it's impossible to ignore. If you go anywhere on social media today, you see the 10-year anniversary of the Showtime kick. You had a very nice message that you posted on your social media kind of talking about it. What kind of feelings and emotions do you get when you sign on, your Instagram or whatever, and you just see a stream of the highlights of, one of the biggest moments of your career there?
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. It's been 10 years, 10 years now. It makes me feel a little old, honestly. I'm like, man, I've been in this game for a long time. But yeah, one of the best kicks ever in MMA history. I mean, the way I landed it, and in the last round, last fight of the WEC to win my championship, it's kind of amazing.
How many people think you knocked out Benson Henderson with that kick? As opposed to
the people that didn't watch it live, I think they all think it's a knockout. But yeah, Ben's a G for surviving that kick, because I connected clean with my foot to his chin.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. Like, seems to be one of the cleaner strikes you can land. I mean, it's pretty shocking he didn't go out from that.
Yeah, bro. I mean, like, I was surprised, and even when I was on top of him, I remember I was hammer fisting him. I'm like, man, he's still in it. So like, I was only like 10 seconds left in the fight, but it was amazing.
Yeah. Is it, I mean, when you look at that, do you kind of remember being in the moment, or is it so long ago, being a decade ago, it's kind of hard to put yourself on that night, on that fight?
No, man, I remember all that, honestly. I remember, going into that, his hometown, I remember going in that arena and like no one was cheering for me. And then after that fight, after that kick, I had all of them turned into fans. So it was a great night.
Yeah, that's amazing. And obviously, I watched your interview with Ariel Helwani where you talked a lot about your mentality coming into this fight, working with the sports psychologist and all that. And kind of wanted to interestingly tie these two things together. I mean, when you look at the Showtime kick, you're obviously such a young fighter, maybe innocent in a certain degree, don't know, maybe your limitations on certain aspects of the game. Is that what allows you to pull off something like that? Like, maybe you're not, I don't know if you want to call it like traumatized, but like in a way, the more you fight, the more you learn, you kind of see the possibilities of what can happen, and maybe you overthink things in a way. Like, you were young and free and stuff. Is that kind of what allows you to pull something like that off in a fight?
Honestly, I think it was the freedom I had and not having so much attached to it. I didn't have distractions, if you will. I didn't have more distractions is the best thing. I didn't have all these things I was thinking about in the back end, what ifs. Obviously, losing fights, you're like, okay, this can happen if I try this move, or if I go too far out and try new things. But yeah, I would say the biggest thing is distractions.
Very interesting. And do you feel going into this fight, with all the work you've done with the sports psychologist and everything, that the distractions are, as limited as they've ever been?
Man, yeah, I feel like I'm the most clear I've ever been, honestly. Like, I haven't had the ability to bring myself back to the present moment like I can now. Like, usually before, if I heard a comment or I heard somebody like make a remark, if I read a comment, what I'm saying, it would take me on this like mind journey that wasn't conducive to what I'm trying to do in the training room or in my life. So it was like having the ability to recognize these feelings now, and then like bringing myself back to the present moment, and then making a decision based on how I'm supposed to be acting, not like what comment I read or what feeling I had.
Do you wish you had done stuff like this earlier in your career? Or do you feel like now maybe you wouldn't have, through everything you've been through, like now is the right time for you to figure it out, and you can't be like, you have to leave the past in the past in a way?
Yeah, honestly, I think everything happens for a reason. I feel like I got on this journey this year. I mean, crazy year for everybody. 2020 has been like one of them crazy years for everybody. But for me, it's honestly been the most growth as a human being, man. Not only as an athlete, but as a human being, like understanding my emotions and getting behind like what causes me to react certain ways. I'm on a big kick of just like understanding myself and understanding the way I react to certain things, whether it be my daughter, my fiance, my brothers, my training. It all comes around full circle. Like, if you can do it in the octagon, if you do it in your training sessions, you use the same exact skills that I'm acquiring in my personal life, and I see the growth. It's a real skill set that I would definitely wish I had it younger. But I think, like, as you're talking about it, like when the Showtime kick came around, when I was on my run for the UFC championship, I was so focused on just that. I didn't have distractions on that could go take my mind in different places and take me out of that room, because that's what happens. If you're in a training room, and that's where I kind of plateaued in my career. I feel like I wasn't growing as a martial artist because when I was in the training rooms, I would get a thought and it would take my mind out of that room. And I wasn't even aware of this. You know, I'd be like doing 2-hour sessions and doing my cardio, doing all my stuff, but my mind wasn't on that present moment. And I was like somewhere else. And like you said, you know, when fights happen and you got losses and you got wins, I mean, I have it all, you know, crazy highlights. It's easy to get distracted and not even be aware of that you're getting distracted and pulling out of that actual environment you're in.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So in one way, like, can you say that you had such a big tunnel vision on your career, but you didn't even realize it was like a tunnel vision in a way?
Yeah, so what I did when I went back to all my fights, you know, me and the sports psychiatrist, the UFC actually gave me this guy, and he's amazing. You know, his name's Micah, and he's a former Major League Baseball player, so he can relate to us as athletes and understand like what we go through and the emotions and everything that goes behind it. And a great example is like, you know, he's like, you know, when you're training and you're or even if you're in a big moment, you're walking out to a fight, you know, things pop up like what bills do I have to pay? What's next? What if I lose? What if I win? All these thoughts that, you know, come to our mind, just for humans, it's going to happen. And it's up to us to like be able to recognize that, you know, and not let your mind drift off in one. And I felt myself in fights, you know, I would go into like my last recent fights. I watched a lot of my fights and just went through my emotions in them fights and like where my mindset was at, where I was at. And I could remember things that I shouldn't be thinking about in those fights. You know, there shouldn't be distractions, and they can be little distractions, you know, whether it's like a takedown and you're like, oh man, like this happened to me before, I'm gonna get laid on for 5 minutes or 4 minutes, and then you like you feed that like thought like, oh, if I get taken down in this round then I might lose the round, and then now you're reacting towards some stuff that happened in the past and not what's really going on in the present moment. And then them thoughts that are supposed to be in that octagon, in that cage, are, man, far away. And it's crazy to recognize it and see that, you know, that's a huge part of the game.
That's super fascinating. So I guess in that degree, where obviously it seems to me like you're very passionate, you're very locked in about the fighting, and it's obviously still very important to you. But has this allowed you to prioritize fighting in your career a little differently, and maybe, you know, not be, you're obviously the young guy full of, you know, piss and vinegar and have so many big goals and stuff. Do you maybe look at it differently in terms of, you know, how big of a part of your life it is?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's a huge part of my life. You know, I grew up under these lights. You know, I think I'm 11, about to be 12 years with the UFC with Zuffa. So I mean, I've grew up under these Zuffa lights and then the pressure on me, the weeds box, the championships, the big fights. You know, and when I look back at my career, I'm just like, man, I was making it, like you said, a little bit too much. You know, I was like, what's the next big thing? What's the next big high? What's the next big fight? What's going to get me in the next era? And I never got to like decompress. Like I didn't decompress from my fights and like look at my performances like with not judgment. Like instead of judging my performances, I'm looking at them with curiosity. Why did I do this? What situation led me to make that decision? And when you can look at your performances through that lens and even your practices through that lens, so much growth happens. And you know, it was amazing for me to see it. I'm just like, whoa, like this is definitely like a superpower that, you know, if you can have control of your feelings, and no one can control their feelings. Anything's going to come. Like you have a bad sparring session, but being able to recognize the feelings that you get from that bad sparring session, and then decompress it, and then start the next day fresh, or start the next session fresh without them feelings of your bad sparring session, or a bad pad session, or a shitty run, or a bad weight cut for that matter. You know, if you can have the ability to separate all that and then bring yourself back to the present moment and make your next decision based on the present moment, not, you know, some past stuff or some perspective that you gave yourself. It's amazing.
So with all that said, how do you think this impacts the fight on Saturday? What do you think it's going to allow you to do differently? How do you think it impacts, you know, how you're able to perform both from a mental and physical side of it? How are you hoping all of this comes together in terms of your actual fight performance?
I mean, obviously we all want to win, you know, we all want to win. We want a great performance, but I feel like in this time coming in, I have a different skill set. It's not a physical skill set. I'm not trying to like do this power move or like some crazy Showtime kick for that matter. You know, I have this like the ability to bring myself present back to the octagon. And that's what even in the Cowboy fight, that was one of them fights that was a quick turnaround. They gave us like 4 weeks notice on that fight, maybe 3 weeks. I think I had 3 weeks notice for the Cowboy fight. And the skill set was just kind of brand new to me. And we weren't using it in the octagon yet. I was using it more in my personal life, like cleaning up my relationship with my mom, my brothers, my daughter, my fiance. You know, so we were using these skill sets in the personal life. And then all of a sudden this fight popped up with Cowboy, and I got to use a glimpse of it. You know, like I already knew like whether I win or whether I lost, like I know my next decision based off of that fight wasn't going to be attached to a result of a performance. It was more attached to a mindset, you know, some real like structural things. And structure is huge for me, like things that like are values to me, and structure is a big value to me. And I used that in the Cowboy fight, and I was brand new to it. Now I have, you know, a couple more months, you know, in this mindset, in this journey, I guess, to figure out myself, who I am. And I just feel like it's going to bring just that much more passion to this fight. You know, being present in that octagon. That's all I can control. You know, like I can't go in there and I can't, you know, make me land a Showtime kick for that matter. It's kind of like just if I'm there present and I'm in my flow, and if I can get into that flow state, who knows what happens.
That's super fascinating. And how much of a role does dropping drinking alcohol and smoking marijuana play in just where you are mentally right now?
Huge, man. And like, you know, it was kind of weird to talk about that. That was my first time publicly talking about, you know, alcohol and marijuana. Not saying like I had a crazy huge problem, but I've been in this spotlight so long, and you don't really get to, like, when I decompress these fights, I would decompress what happened after the fights, and like see where I was at mentally, and see what it led to me for my next performance and my next training camp. And when you're in the trenches, you don't really get time to look at your fights and your performances, man. But when I went back and I looked at everything, and I was like really doing it with a curiosity mindset more than a judgment mindset, because I have done it with a judgment mindset where I'm like, that was a dumb move. Why did you do that there? Or you let him take you down, or you let him get on top and control. Like, and I was judging myself. And then when you leave that decompression stage of watching yourself and judging yourself, you leave with them emotions, and the emotions are attached to your training session. They're attached to your life. They're attached to everything that comes next. But when you do it from a view of curiosity, and there's like, all right, let's just, without judging myself, why did this happen, and where was I at? And you know, the yo-yos of the fight world, like, you know, a big win, you're like, oh, I'm gonna go celebrate, so I'm gonna, you know, I deserve this for what I would tell myself. I deserve this. You know, it's like the balance, the yin and yang. Like, you work hard, you play hard. You know, all them things that everybody says, and then you know, and then you get a loss, and the loss is like, man, I'm sad. I'm depressed. I'm really depressed. You know, like, we put so much time and effort into this, we get depressed, and I'm sure other fighters can relate to this too. Like, and then the eating habits come with that. The getting bigger than you're supposed to get because you're eating more. Obviously, the alcohol is everywhere. You know, and for me, that was like one of my vices was alcohol. When I lost my dad, you know, that was like going all the way back to that. It's like, man, that's what I was introduced to me at. Like, you know, dealing with my pain and my sorrow with alcohol, or like some kind of substance, you know. And then honestly, marijuana was like a newer one for me. It was like so like here in Vegas, it's legal to get anywhere. And it's like, man, it's recreational now. It's not illegal. It's not like a bad thing. And then you use that vice, and then it takes you out of being present, man. And my, you know, just and I can recognize that now. It's not like I'm not saying marijuana is bad, or I'm not saying like yes or no to that. It's like, for me, where my journey is, it takes me out of being present, and it definitely is I guess a way out of being sad or being happy or being present, man. So yeah, I think that, you know, quitting that and making that a decision and making it public, I think now it's like I got to stand by that, and that's kind of why I wanted to do that. You know, like now I'm like, you know, this part of my life, I don't need that stuff.
So, I mean, I think obviously what you're saying here is like, we're all human, right? We all have our crutches and stuff and our things that we need to cope with life and all that. But is it maybe fair to say that now that you've removed that, you have a obviously much clearer vision of who you are as a person and what you're capable of and things like that?
Definitely. And I mean, not only just physically, like obviously this physically is what matters in my fight career, but as a person, man, like being present and making decisions not based on some perspective that was given to me by myself, you know, something like, you know, if I lose a fight, I go drink and I go on a vacation and I do this, or I get away from social media, like being able to be present and like, yo, I'm not, like, I'm human, you know, everybody's human, you know, things happen. All I can control is how ready I am in the octagon. And then obviously those roller coasters of outside of training camp and inside of training camp of, you know, getting fat and getting skinny and doing all the things that, you know, I thought were normal as a fighter. I gave that to myself. That perspective was given to me by myself, that I had to fix that.
So is it fair to say now that going into this fight on Saturday, like Alex Morono, a good fighter, he's been around, he's had some good wins, some tough losses, but is he the opponent as irrelevant as it's ever been in terms of going into this fight? Like, it's all kind of about you in that sense?
Most definitely. Yeah, I think, and then also, like, if we're getting deep into that, like I was fighting the best in the world, man. I was fighting the best, the biggest names, and I kind of got used to that. Every time I went to the UFC, it was like, all right, I want Anderson Silva, I want Wonder Boy, I want the big names. I want to fight. I want to prove it to. I don't even know who I was proving it to. I was just trying to like fight the big names, and then now that I'm in this mindset, it's like about growth. Everybody's dangerous in the UFC. There's no easy fights. It's not like there's a gimme fight or easy fight. Maybe some guys are more well known than other guys, but there are no easy fights in this sport. The UFC does a great job of bringing in the best talent that's out there. So I think for this fight, it is definitely about me, man. Like I definitely watch his fights. I see his strengths. I see his weaknesses. But if I can go in there and be present in an octagon and get into my flow state, I don't think anybody beats me.
That's amazing. I know we're on short time here, so a couple last questions. You talked about the big fights in the past. It's kind of crazy you're sharing the card with Jose Aldo here, and you're fighting at 170, and he's fighting at 135. Isn't that kind of just mind-blowing in a way?
Crazy, man. Yeah, 'cause I mean, we were matched at the fight at 45 one time, and honestly, like, it didn't happen for whatever reason. But I respect the guy, man. Like when I think about like my approach to the game back when I was younger, and like I would try to like get angry, and I would try to like use this anger to fight, and it would look beautiful, but I would like try to get in there and intimidate my guys. Like, but now I'm more of the mindset like fight night Saturday. I got to be present in that 15 minutes. The more emotion I put between the weigh-ins and all that other stuff, the kind of the focus I lose off of what's really matters, that 15 minutes in the octagon. And seeing Jose Aldo go down to 35 and I know what dedication that takes, man, because I went to 45, and bro, that was brutal. It was a hard weight cut. It was a hard process. It's a life-changing thing. You got to change your lifestyle to actually make them that extra 10 pounds. So you know how dedicated of an athlete that guy is.
Totally. Is this the last fight on your UFC contract, Anthony?
It is my last fight on the UFC contract, under my current contract. So we're in negotiations. Not sure where we're going from here. My team keeps like asking me questions and trying to figure out what's next. But I'm like, I'm such in a good spot mentally that I don't want to like fog that vision with what's next. Because if I'm thinking about what's next, I'm not in the present moment.
Would it disappoint you though if this was your final UFC fight, or are you not worried about that?
I'm not worried about that, man. Honestly, I feel like whatever's supposed to happen as far as where I'm going next, or if I am fighting the UFC again, or if I can make another title run, my performance on Saturday will dictate that. It's not like something I can control. I can't go in there and meet with guys and like, hey, I'm going to do this, and like my performances are what's going to dictate what happens next.
Is it fair to say, with all the looming roster cuts and all that, is there any added weight on this performance? I mean, I know it's all about just going in there and all the things we've talked about here, but is this an extra layer with, the fact that there is guys who have been established, big names who have been parting ways with the promotion in recent weeks?
Nah, I mean, I wouldn't say that at all, honestly. I think that the UFC is a great business. I've been part of this company for 12 years almost now, man. And like, I've seen every stage of this company. I've been on the top of the top when I was getting on the Wheaties box, world champion. And I've been fighting for my job when I came off that 3-loss losing streak from RDA to Eddie Alvarez to Edson Barboza. I mean, I've been on the chopping block for a long time where like, if I let that mindset play in, there's no coming back from that. Cause that's what you're focused on, man. And like, honestly, blessing for me to have like this mindset where I'm at right now with all the news that's coming out about cuts and fighters being, different promotions. I don't really feel pressure on that right now, man. I feel like my fighting style speaks for itself. I think I've done some amazing things in the sport. I've been great with the UFC. I think I have a great relationship with the UFC. And I fight the best. I say yes to most fights, man. So I feel like I'm a great addition to the roster, but like it is a business. So like I understand in any way it goes. The only thing I can control is my performance.
Well, no doubt anyone would be lucky to have you, whether it's UFC or, you end up going somewhere else. But either way, obviously a huge fight for you coming up on Saturday. And I really appreciate you opening up so much about your mindset. I think this is really, really interesting stuff. And
yeah, man, I think the biggest reason I did it is I want other fighters. Like, I know I'm making a lot of judgment on this. Like, Pettis did this, or like he's a alcoholic or a pothead or whatever like that comes along with that. I'm open to that because I feel like fighters need to hear this. Like, no one's actually like explaining, especially me. I've been here for 12 years and the highest highs, lowest lows. They need to hear this while they're relevant in the sport, because most guys don't get a career for 12 years. They got 5 years, 4 years, 3 years if they're lucky. They got to make the right decisions in that time frame to put themselves in the best position.
Absolutely. And look where we are. I mean, talking about 10 years ago, the Showtime kick, here you are fighting on a main card of the final UFC event of the year, another massive fight in the career of Anthony Pettis. So really appreciate you taking the time, man, and looking forward to catching up again soon.
Thank you, bro.
Take care.
Later.